What's up, guys? If you're watching this, it's probably May 17th, 2020. Uh, Welcome back to Hacks Facts. Before we get into it, just a word from our sponsors who make this operation possible. I'm sure Greg, our guest Greg Golson today, can attest to this, and I myself can attest to this, that few things in this world feel better than the right wood bat in the grips of your hands. And let me tell you, Jake Huff, an American batsmith out in Salt Lake City, Utah, they've figured out how to do this the right way, guys. I mean, nothing quite compares to the feeling of a ball striking the barrel with no vibration, right? When you know it's a good piece of wood and you know that sound is pure and it comes right off. And they do a great job over there. They do all top quality maple, birch, ash, and they work with you guys. They're able to get you guys the best quality product, whether you are, a fifth-year major league player or you are, a high school guy trying to learn how to hit with wood. www.americanbatsmith.com. I encourage you guys to go out there, check it out. And for our Racks Hacks and Hacks Facts subscribers and members, there are some discount codes. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to reach out to us and we can provide you with that. And then secondly, we are brought to you guys by Racks Hacks Remote Training. We're going to talk very shortly with Greg about what a post-COVID baseball industry looks like and what the post-COVID world looks like through the lens of sports professionals. But we can assure you that we can help you guys stay prepared. We have all the top quality video analysis technology. If you're looking for comparisons of how to get yourself better from a mechanical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from an emotional and spiritual standpoint, we have pro instructors. We have guys who've been there, gone through it, gotten themselves to pro baseball, and we have guys that understand the ins and outs of mechanics and how to get guys better. Check us out on our social media pages at RaxHacks, RAX_HAX, or write to us at raxhackspro@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to get you guys, at least an evaluation and get you into there and help you guys understand what it is that makes you tick mechanically. We do this through a lot of remote video analysis technology. Anyway, without any further ado, our guest today, very esteemed guest, Major League, ex-Big League outfielder. We got Greg Golson, guys. I'll just run through real quick. I mean, this guy needs no introduction. It's a first-round pick in 2004 by the Philadelphia Phillies, 21st overall pick. Made his major league debut on September 3rd, 2008. Ultimately, he won a ring 2008 with the Phillies. I mean, played all over the world. Played in Venezuela, played in Mexico, played for the Yankees, for the Phillies, for the Rangers. You ended up playing, for a bunch of other teams, organizations in their minor league systems. Long established, very successful career, and now is, with the pro scouting department for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So this is a guy that really understands the ins and outs, really understands the perspective from both, as a player, as well as, the mindset of the scout, of the analyst, of stepping back and looking at it holistically. Guy I'm very proud to have called, a former teammate of mine, even for a short period of time in Somerset back in 2017. But, when I first started talking to you, man, and I was lucky enough to honestly to kind of gain your mentorship. I mean, it changed my trajectory in my career, and I think it opened my eyes to a lot of things that otherwise I would never have been exposed to. So, thank you for being on, and it's really exciting to have you here, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I mean, a lot of the times, and again, you didn't even ask this question, but a lot of times when it comes to like sharing knowledge in baseball, a lot of times if the older guy sees a younger guy or someone on his team that is just receptive and open, that's what, draws that information out. They always say ask questions, but, just being humble and having respect, a lot of times that's gonna bring a lot of, I guess, experienced ball players into your ear without you even having to ask, just being humble and respectful.
Yeah, so you know what? Before we even get into some of the other stuff, it's interesting you bring that up, because when we're around players, around a lot of high school players or college players, we see an interesting dynamic, right? Where a lot of times younger players are very, very not shy, but they're tentative to alienate the older guys, the more established guys. And, I can speak to being in a Atlantic League clubhouse as a rookie out of college with big leaguers that you watch play on TV. I can understand why certain guys feel that way, but coming from the other side, I mean, you've seen both sides because you've come into clubhouses as the young guy. You've also been the guy that's been there and has the knowledge. How do you think what can players do to show their reverence or their appreciation for something? Like, how can they make themselves without, you don't want to suck up to guys. You don't want to make yourself weak, but
Right.
I think it's an important concept for guys. Like, how can they draw the most out of their seniors, the guys that are older in the clubhouse, and how can you foster like a really efficient, good culture with that?
That's a good question because everyone does it their own different ways. The baseball culture has changed since I'd say the '90s and the early 2000s, where the veterans were kind of revered as top men on the totem pole, and if the rookies were to be seen and not heard.
Right.
And I think that probably I'd say that probably hurt a lot of younger players I guess development, because you go through the minor leagues as like, all right, I'm the guy, and then you get called up and it's like you're supposed to shrink yourself, and I don't think that's what is supposed to be done. I think it's more of just how you carry yourself. Like, no one's asking you to walk around with your head down and like scared. Confidence is always a good thing, but I don't know, ask questions and be willing to listen. Like I run across this a lot with sometimes kids that are eager to learn. They're also eager to let me know that they know something, where it's like you'll start saying something and then they'll cut you off because they're trying to tell you that they know what you're saying. And in their eyes, they think that they are, getting on your good side because they're prepared. But in actuality, they're just kind of pissing you off because they won't shut up, like, let me talk, So it comes in a lot of different ways, how to be humble and to show humility. But I think it just be genuine and understand that, you do have a lot to learn, and I think that's throughout baseball, whether you're a coach, whether you're a scout, whether you're GM, whether you're the commissioner of baseball, we've always got something to learn. So I think just going into any setting with the mindset of what can I learn today, or whose brain can I pick? I think a lot of veterans who've been around the game, they see that and they're like, I'm going to help this guy out because he's good for the game. You don't want to tell that to somebody who thinks they know it all, and then when they do end up having success, they're pumping their chest going around the bases like they did it, when it's, it takes a village type of thing.
And I think it's also refreshing. You can usually tell the guy that he wants to absorb information because maybe there's a chance that he'll pass that on later on. And then that's that continuous, that good culture. And I think I've talked to a lot of college coaches. A lot of college coaches would say that's, if you can keep that in house, that's what kind of creates a culture that sustains itself.
100%. I mean, the best teams I've ever been on, it's like baseball was all they talked about.
Right.
Like we knew we were going to win because maybe we'd be out to eat, or at a bar or something. And guess what? We're still talking about baseball.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how did that guy get you out? I can't believe that. Like just bringing up the game is how you really get better. Like, you don't really get better by playing the game. You just kind of, you're made aware of what can be better. And then after the game is kind of like when you talk about it with your teammates or your coaches or whatever, and you can really gain insight on what you just saw or just learned in the game.
Did you feel that was different, or were there differences in that when you make it to the big leagues? Is that same environment? Like, obviously there are some differences, but does that same culture resonate in like successful big league organizations?
Yeah, I think it's a little different because, with the with the beat writers and the media being in there, especially in the bigger market teams, there's not much privacy or ability to just kind of talk about the game without a microphone. A hot mic being on right behind you and you getting in trouble because you said
Sure.
something. So I think it's a little different there. I think a lot of that stuff where they talk about the game in the big leagues happens, in other areas. You just got to figure out where you can, I guess, feed into that culture, whether that be in the batting cage, in the bullpens, during BP, whatever it is. They just find that safe space where, the players can talk about stuff and not really have to worry about their words getting out, because, a reporter can record something you say and then, splice it however they want to.
Twist
and then,
it, right.
Yeah, present it to someone else on the team and be like, oh, Zach said this about, your play yesterday. What do you have to say about that? So just stuff like that where it's kind of predatory, that kind of changes, the dynamic. But I think ultimately it's the same thing. Good baseball teams tend to have baseball on their mind.
Yeah. That's simple, but that's a very, very profound statement. And especially in today's culture where we're very distracted and we're very media centric. And it's important to bring us back to that. I want to staying on this a little bit. I mean, what were there particular guys? You got any stories of guys that mentored you? I mean, I have no doubt you've been around some very, some baseball royalty. I don't know, anything that you feel comfortable sharing that helped you, give you opportunities and learn to mold into the player you became.
Well, every stop that I went on, especially as I was coming up like below 27 or 28.
Yeah.
Every place that I got to, it was like a veteran on the team kind of gravitated towards me. And it wasn't like he said, hey, I'm going to take you under my wing.
Right.
But it was kind of like you see it and they're not going to let you know. But like, for instance, Marlon Byrd, when I got called up with the Rangers. So when I got drafted, Marlon Byrd had just finished his year in 2003 and was like second or third on the list for Rookie of the Year votes. And so I get drafted first round, and I'm a center fielder, and he had just almost won Rookie of the Year as a center fielder. So I remember when I was on the field in my about to sign my contract type thing, and I'm just looking at, taking in batting practice as a newly drafted player. Mm-hmm. I remember looking around and seeing Marlon Byrd kind of giving me this side eye. Why is that guy looking at me like that? And then I realized, I was like, oh, probably because the team just kind of slapped him in the face by, investing in a center fielder. But, that's neither here nor there. So I just assumed that Marlon would not like me. So I get traded, and Marlon ends up being with the Rangers. And the first day in spring training, he walks over to my locker, and he's just, he is the nicest, just helpful. Hey, if you ever need anything, let me know, yada, yada, yada. So spring training, I'm only up for probably 2 weeks in spring training. And then I get called up, and I get called up, and it's right before a road trip. We're going to go to Oakland, Seattle, and Chicago. Okay. And we get to Oakland, and when we're in Oakland, we stay in St. Francis, which is a little bit farther away because Oakland they don't want to stay in there, obviously. So we get there, and I'm kind of anxious because it's I'm in this new city. I'm on this new team. I haven't even been here this long, and I just got called up. What do I do? And while I'm frantically trying to figure out how I'm going to get to the field, what I'm going to eat, all this stuff that just kind of goes through your mind before the game. Mm-hmm. I get a text message from Marlon. He's like, hey, meet me down in the lobby in, an hour and a half. We're going to go to the stadium a little early. And it was like, yes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Perfect. Because when I was up with the Phillies, Ryan Howard and Jimmy Rollins, they kind of kept me under their wing and put me under their wing, but they were, at the time, September 2008, they were trying to get past the Mets in the playoffs. Right. And once the playoffs started, they were trying to win the World Series. So there really wasn't enough time to be catering to some rookie, especially when they probably thought I was going to be around the next year. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So when I got traded and, Marlon was over there, it was just kind of cool to know someone from the previous organization that I was with. But he was, he'd take me out to eat. He would hit with me in the cage. We would hit. I was only up for a week with the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't get the opportunity to, I guess, be with him that much. But, I guess Granderson and Swisher, they took over that role when I was with the Rangers. I actually lived with Granderson, and he was like a big brother to me because before I even met him, people were like, you kind of remind me of Curtis Granderson. And I was like, oh, really? And I ended up living with him. But it was just really cool seeing how, on that team, there's names galore, 6 to 7 potential Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And, Granderson is pretty much on that level. He played in the big leagues for 16, 17 years. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's one of the bigger names.
Right.
So for him to come up to me and be like, hey, you want to stay at my place? And I'm like, and his place was right around the corner from somewhere on this. So at first I was like, nah, I'm okay. I'll just get a hotel. And then we go on the road, come back, and he's like, you sure you don't want to stay at my place? It's expensive in New York. And I was like, yeah, I'll stay. Yeah. So I moved into his place, and, it was like he gave me, he let me know when he was leaving, but it wasn't like, hey, you're going to stay with me, so you're going to do what I say. He gave me a key, and I probably haven't been as good as I should have been about, reaching out and, keeping in contact with those guys. But, man, they were instrumental to me just feeling comfortable, That's a big part of baseball is just if you get up to the big leagues and you're not comfortable, you're not going to do well.
Right.
And I think that's why the culture has changed in baseball, where the older veteran guys are more helpful to the younger guys because they know, we're depending on this guy to help us win. I think back in the day, they were kind of hazing the younger guys, and it was like, this doesn't make sense. We're not helping ourselves out. If this guy doesn't feel comfortable, how are we going to get mad at him when he doesn't get the job done or he doesn't execute? So I think the game's changed in that way so that the veterans are looking to help out and take guys under their wing, but it is necessary for you as a younger player to just kind of be a little bit more humble and understand that they're trying to help you. And something that I think a lot of people don't understand is you could be the best player in the world, but if that veteran on that team doesn't like you, you're not going to be a good. Yeah. You're not going to be there long because they have so much pull. So I think a lot of it just has to do with knowing what you bring to the table and just kind of how you can maximize your value by just listening to the people around you.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think Major League Baseball stands in regard? Obviously, not to put you in a strange position here, but it's no secret that the game's getting younger, and that more and more veteran presences in clubhouses, they're being either significantly they're being scaled back in both their volume and I think their voice in a lot of clubhouses. But won't that have a negative effect on sort of continuing this tradition of a fraternity like baseball? Baseball obviously needs that veteran presence. They need it. It's not enough to just say, we're all about showmanship now. We're all about clout and social media clicks and all this stuff. And, go out there and do your doubles call sign and bang on your chest and all this whatnot.
I think baseball in general, since it began, has been very, I'm not going to say cyclical because it doesn't always come back around. But I just think the game is, anyone who's played it knows that the game is all about adjustments. So, even on a battlefield, if you see your opponent has gained an advantage, you're going to adjust. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much how the game of baseball has operated for the past 100 so years, is that, okay, a lot of hitters are starting to pull the ball and get on the plate. So, all right, we're going to come up with another pitch, a breaking ball, or we're going to throw guys in or make them uncomfortable. I think, once the two factions adjust against each other,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the game kind of evolves, So, I think with the analytics and a lot of the tools that are being used, I think you're seeing some of the improvements that are being made in the game from the pitching perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pitchers are inventing pitches now that hitters have never had to hit before.
Right.
So, and guys are throwing harder.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it's getting harder to hit, but pitchers are definitely presenting more challenges to hitters that they haven't had before, like Eovaldi, or guys who just come from different angles that can make the ball appear like it's doing something that it's not. And that deception is something that you really can't practice for in the cage.
I mean, I remember one of the greatest pieces of advice you ever given me was don't label pitches in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sit in the box or on deck circle or the dugout, whatever it may be. Don't prepare for an at-bat and go into that at-bat saying, he's going to throw this, or even if you're sitting on a pitch, don't say he's going to throw the slider, because when you say things like that,
yep,
you have this you have baseball players. If you've created this mind map and you have enough of a body of work for those out there listening, if you say, he's going to throw the breaking ball, you probably have a general idea in your head what a breaking ball looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have an idea what a slider looks like out of the hand. Mm-hmm. And there are these lines, so to speak, coming out of the pitcher's release. What you're alluding to right here, and I think you're spot on, is that guys have now figured out how to, with pitch design, they're sort of blending pitches together or making fastballs sink in ways and spin in ways that you might sit back and be like, I don't know what that – I don't know about you. I've had at-bats both good and bad. Sometimes I've hit doubles and I'm on second base and I'm thinking to myself, like, what was that pitch I just swung at?
Yeah.
And the guy will ask you in the dugout, you're like, what were you looking for? And you're like, I don't even know what that was. I just reacted and I did my job. But
yeah, I think that's where you just kind of I think that's where you're in the zone. You're in that flow state, where it's like your mind turns off, so your recall isn't there when it happens. It's like, What did you hit? And you're like, was I even existing when that happened? Like, you were just a part of the game, Right. So I think I'm sorry, I kind of forgot what we were talking about because that was a really cool idea. But yeah, I think the idea is, I realized that because I would always keep a notebook of all the pitchers that I face.
Okay.
I would, on each page, it would be like the front, I would write down, maybe my own personal scouting report from what my eyes saw.
Okay.
Because as a leadoff hitter, every time I got back to the dugout, everybody was waiting for me to give them my scouting report, because I was really big on not fudging what the pitcher has. Like I almost did the opposite, like if a guy's got a really, 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 really good curveball, right? Yeah. Instead of me saying in my notes or when I get back to the dugout, instead of me saying, man, he has got a devastating breaking ball, mm-hmm. I'll say he likes the breaking ball.
Okay.
Or above average breaking ball. Just so when I read it, it's not fear that I'm taking from this sheet of paper and scouting report. It's a game, And I think we do that even without knowing it. We do it unconsciously because it's like, or subconsciously, because like you said, if I know that the guy's got a good breaking ball and the guy before me I saw just looked terrible at it because he's expecting it to do a lot more. Mm-hmm. When I go up there, I'm going to expect his breaking ball to do something that maybe it doesn't do the same thing to my eyes that it does to his.
Yeah. So
he throws that breaking ball and I'm thinking, all right, I have to swing underneath it so it gets it, and I end up popping it up.
Right.
But I don't, as I'm running down the first baseline, I think I missed the pitch because of how dirty his breaking ball is, as opposed to understanding that I just overestimated his ability. You know what I mean? Like that guy on the mound, he's human too, and more than likely he's not going to hit his spot. So
Right.
whenever I would swing at a pitch in the dirt or chase something or something that I was giving the pitcher too much credit for,
Mm-hmm.
I'd step out and I'd say, see what you hit and hit what you see.
I love that. I love
Because
that.
if you're giving it too much, then it's like you're hitting something that's not even there. The ball's coming and you're trying to hit something that you don't see.
Yeah.
And I think on a grand scheme of things, I think that's what everyone is doing in baseball right now is they are. And again, I'm not against launch angle because every swing produces a launch angle.
Sure.
But I think, on the whole in baseball, I think everyone is just kind of putting the carriage before the cart, because it's like they talk about getting on plane, right?
Right.
Well, duh. How are you going to hit the ball if you're not on plane?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't want to, again, maybe I don't understand a lot of the metrics as well as I should because I'm still learning again.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, if you get on plane too early and the guy throws a sinker or a cutter or something that moves late, that on planeness is basically making your swing long.
Right.
So if you're a younger player and all you've been told is get on plane, get on plane, get on plane, get on plane, when you get to the higher levels, you're going to be disappointed in your ability to make contact because your swing is so long.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all boils down to hit what you see and see what you hit and know where your barrel is.
Right.
Because I think everything else is kind of, I don't know. It all depends. It's subjective. It depends on you as the individual.
Right.
For instance, Ian Desmond, I think I saw something a couple of years ago that said that he had the lowest or the lowest average launch angle of any major league player.
Mm-hmm.
He's super on top of the ball.
Right.
And he's been kind of made out to be almost a villain or a lost commodity in baseball because his launch angle isn't high, but the guy plays great defense. The guy barrels the ball well, and he makes pitchers afraid because he's going to hit the ball off of their forehead at some point.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think there's just too much mimicry in baseball right now that I think people just need to be comfortable with who they are. Like I'm not the same player as you. You're not the same player as me, but we both belong on a baseball team.
I think that, this is a very much like the metric analysis, right? That the widespread use of boiling things down into numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a reductionist approach. And if you look at any tech company or you look at a lot of the leading, businesses and organizations in American industry these days, a lot of companies use reductionist approaches. They want to boil things down into their smallest components and then build you back up. And I actually think that's a good strategy.
Correct.
Personally, I think that the metrics are best used when you have to position them in the context of what is happening in game for you. Because sure, if you hit a 95 mile an hour exit velocity at 30-degree launch angle or something, like, yes, by scientific definition, sure, the ball will go to X place. But one of the things you said, which I think is so applicable, and I don't think kids understand it, because oftentimes kids aren't seeing professional sink. They're not seeing professional splitters. They're seeing flatter fastballs. What you might use metric-wise for the amateur guy, I learned it myself because I worked with people that were discussing that in college, and I was a very successful college hitter. You get to pro ball, and you realize, like, okay, there is the only flat fastball is like a 97 mile an hour fastball. So you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Now for me personally, I realized that, like, I actually had to over exaggerate even more so getting under a splitter, getting under a sinker. And like you said, like, it's all individualized. It depends on the individual, but there is a real appeal to, like, a reductionist approach these days. And I think the most successful coaches, you always, at the end of the day, it's like ball don't lie. Like, if you can hit in games, then okay, something. Maybe what is different than what the coach is teaching, but if you hit in games, something. Now, it's not necessarily what is showing up in scouting. It's not necessarily showing up in these tools-based evaluators. And I mean, linking it back to what, like you said, we all, different types of quality guys, they all have a role on a baseball field. I personally think it's being lost. Like, what's being lost in this reductionist approach is that humanistic, like, what kind of player are you? What kind of mentality do you bring? How do
all the other stuff?
Which
yeah,
we've been led to believe like that isn't the actual game. Like, that is the game. The metrics are they are a potential avenue to help you become the best version of yourself and the best player you can be. And I'll be the first person to say, like, I think the metrics are good. They're just an objective thing. But 100%. Like, look at what's happening in you. I mean, you've been around youth baseball. You teach. You do instruction. I got we get people come into us and their son has a bad attitude, and their son is a they bring bad energy, right? But they're consumed with, like, well, what's his exit velocity? What are his tools? He's only being evaluated on tools. And you're like, listen, man, like, you gotta put it all in context,
Yeah.
But,
what I see a lot, and you can't really blame the parents, but what's happened is a lot of instructors obviously make their living off of instructions, and what I've noticed is that, especially within scouting, a lot of times, whether it be pitching, fielding, hitting, base running, a lot of times what is holding a lot of players back is timing.
Okay.
But if I'm an instructor and someone comes to me and I see that they're just late getting ready, how long is it going to take me to teach them that they need to get ready earlier? Maybe 1-2 sessions. But if I have to teach them a completely different swing plane and pattern and
cut it up,
regiment it, and hey, in 2 years, after 2 times a week, maybe we'll have this thing.
You might be just a decent enough hitter to compete.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I throw right-handed. If I go outside and I work on throwing left-handed for 2 years, I'm going to get better at it.
Sure.
So any swing, if you work on it enough, you're going to get better at it. You're going to see improvement. So again, it's, what you were talking about. It's like, it's got to be individualized and subjective, like, I'm not going to, and this is nothing against Judge or his hitting coach, but I'm not going to teach a 5'7" senior in high school how to swing like Aaron Judge, because Aaron Judge can hit a pop-up and it's going to go out of 90% of major league ballparks. So you have to look at your tools and see what you're capable of doing, and then come up with a game plan that's going to allow you to best do it. Like, some days when my swing would feel like crap, I would make sure that I'm trying to get one bunt down and I'm trying to hit the ball between the pitcher's legs or in the 4-hole.
Okay.
This is easy to be late on a fastball. It's easy to hit an 18 hopper through the 4-hole. And it sounds like I'm, by doing that, it sounds like I'm giving in or giving up or admitting that I can't do it today. But all it is just you're coming up with your best way to be successful.
Right. Also,
and that is how you get to the big leagues, in my opinion. You figure out how you can be successful, and you do that on a consistent basis. That's how guys like David Eckstein win the, World Series MVP. He knows what he can do, and he doesn't try to do anything more and nothing else.
Right. And then they're also very good defensive players, and they take care of the, they're a complete ball player. They're not just worrying about their cage work and their base, their hitting. And I mean, like, you're an excellent base runner, you're an excellent base stealer. Something that statistically is leaving the game today. I want to get your thoughts on that too, but it just goes to show that you want to play at elite levels. You can't really afford to just hone in on one thing and forget about the rest. There's the game, I know they're bringing the DH in. They're probably going to have the DH in both leagues, maybe even this year. But it's, for me, all the baseball players I looked up to when I was a kid, they could do it on both sides of the ball. And the other thing is, and I agree with you, I think that you have to be putting it in context about what type of player you are. What I've found with a lot of younger guys too, it's good to compare yourself if you can, if you have the video tech and you have the ability to look at swings back and forth between you and a major leaguer, because in part, what links us to our love for the game and our passion for the game usually is that feeling of being in the backyard as a kid and you're hitting off your dad or your brother and you think you're Mike Piazza hitting a home run against the Yankees in the Subway Series. And so it's a little bit, not to get cheesy with it, but as you get into serious baseball, you end up having real goals and objectives for yourself. I think it can help people buy in by comparing themselves. Okay, I want to hit like X guy. What is it that makes him tick mechanically? What am I doing that's different? And maybe you're a different hitter and you realize that, but to be able to compare, I think, is a good thing.
100%. And that's even on your team. Like, it doesn't have to be a guy who's, in the big league. Like, maybe the guy that hits in front of you who's, I don't know, maybe he's left-handed, you're right-handed. And it's like, when you're on deck, you see him hitting perfectly. And you're like, man, he always gets ready. He's always on time, like, you can always get better, because even if you're playing on the worst freshman team in the school, there's somebody on that team that does something better than you, and you can learn from them just by watching them. I know whenever I was up in the big leagues, it was like I got better just by being in that environment, by watching Cano's cage work, by watching Jeter do his infield work and the level of focus that he would have when he did it, All of those things are like, I talk to a lot of my lessons and I tell them, next time you watch a major leaguer or a high level, baseball player or any athlete really, watch how they do it. Yeah. And I'm like, when I say how, I'm not talking about the sequence in which they do it. I'm saying notice their, characteristics, their focus level, their intensity. Notice how they do things. What's their swagger? And I'm not telling kids to try to have swagger, but as a scout, I can tell when a younger player is destined to be in the big leagues just by his confidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they swing at a bad pitch and they're not embarrassed and hoping that no one saw that swing. Like, everyone has felt before. Like, you swinging a ball in the dirt, you kind of want to stick your head in the mud. You know what I mean? But, when a guy, say a pitcher throws a pitch that sticks the catcher right in the middle of the chest and the umpire balls it. As a scout, I'm looking at that pitcher to see how he responds. Is he going to catch that ball and snap it and be like, what's going on? Yeah. Or is he just going to get the ball back and get back up on the mound? Yeah. How does he handle that adversity? Because I think that shows a lot of a player's makeup. Like, on an individual, any given day, no player, in my opinion, is going to make the big leagues.
Yes. But
he can show the character and the makeup to be able to get to the big leagues. All those guys in the big leagues, they weren't studs their whole lives. Some of them got cut off of their varsity team in high school or didn't make this certain team. But that makeup that they have, where they're like, all right, well, I might not have been good enough in their eyes, but they're going to learn. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's what a lot of big leaguers have, is that a lot of baseball players in general have, is that mentality of, no, this story isn't over yet.
Right. I mean, and for guys out there listening, whether you're our guys or you're just listening in, I mean, this is a ex-big leaguer. This is a guy that's played at the high. This guy's won a ring, and this is a guy that's saying you're not too good to absorb information and learn from those around. That's culture right there. You want college coaches, you're listening. You want to create a culture. You want to create an environment where your players help better each other. There it is. You're not. And again, in Major League Baseball, you are competing. Professional baseball, you are competing for a job with that guy. It is a competition, but you positioned it in a way where you're actually benefiting from each other because you're watching, you're learning from right in front of you. So if you're 15 and you think you have it all figured out, maybe, but you probably, there's chances are you might be able to benefit from soaking up something. It might be a little thing here and there. I mean, like you're dropping like, bombs this entire conversation, but it just goes to show you it's a never ending process of picking up what makes guys tick and putting that back into your own process. But
another thing that I wanted to touch on was a lot of players, whether that be the player or their parents, don't realize how their hubris comes off.
Okay.
Like say there's a kid who might be pretty good, and he's one of these kids that's a big fish in a little pond, which everybody is before they go to the next level.
Right.
And so he's a big fish in a little pond, and you can just see, because I'd commented on confidence and swagger, but that can be taken to an extreme and be a detriment.
Yeah, you got that
Yeah, like I remember, before I got this job, I was just a retired baseball player giving lessons. So of course I don't have the stigma to a lot of parents that I have now.
Sure.
But especially playing indie ball, they're like, oh, when are you going to play real pro ball?
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I remember trying to help this kid who was hitting, and he was just hitting in a way that just wasn't. He's a lefty, smaller kid, and he was kind of hitting like Griffey.
Okay.
But it was like in a way that looked like someone who watched Griffey hit but didn't know baseball, but taught that swing to somebody.
Okay.
And it's nothing against the kid,
right,
but he had good hands. And he was just kind of grounding out everything, hitting everything on the ground, because right when he would make contact, he'd try to raise up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you could just tell whenever an instructor would try to talk to him about something, hey, when you get to the contact, you're like raising up and it's causing you to mishit the ball.
Right.
You could see in his face, he was just kind of like, get out of my face. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I know what I'm doing. And that level of conviction is definitely good.
Yeah.
But you've got to, it's like a buffet. We've all heard that quote, being baseball hitting is like a buffet. Take what you like, put back what you don't.
Yeah.
But you at least have to play the game and look like you are receptive, because you never know, no matter how, like, I'm sure you coach and give lessons to kids. I'm sure there's a small percentage of kids who just do not like you.
That's impossible, man. Everybody likes me, man.
Yeah. There's a small percentage, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They just do not like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what a lot of them don't understand, and I'm sure you wouldn't be the type to do this, but every coach isn't going to get along with every player.
Sure.
But what these players don't understand is that coach wields a lot of power.
True.
Like if you think your coach is an idiot and you constantly treat him like he's an idiot, what's going to happen when a recruiter or another coach or a scout says, hey, what do you got on this guy?
It's true.
Even though the cause of the conflict is the relationship that you guys have, you're just butting heads, it's going to end up impacting your career long further than you think, because once you get labeled in baseball, you can't drop that label.
Right. That's true.
I think just everyone in baseball in particular just needs to just respect everybody else. Like, you might think this guy's an idiot, but you can learn negatives as well as positives. Like, I say this guy teaches you, all right, this is the way you have to bunt, and you do it this, and it's just not a way that works for you. Well, after that, you learned something from him. You learned that that's not the way for you to do it. You know what I mean?
But what do you? Yeah. No, keep going.
It's all a matter of, because think about it this way. I remember I've always kind of taught in a very unorthodox way, in that, like, I'm not going to put walls up and restrictions on players. I'm not going to say, hey, you can't do this and you can't do that.
Right.
Like, the first thing I always do with all my lessons, I set them up on the plate, and I say, I put a ball in the outside corner, and I say, where do you hit this ball? And all of them say, oh, I hit that the other way. And I
Mm-hmm.
say, why? And
Yeah.
they're like, well, you have to hit the ball the other way if it's out there. And I'm like, no, you don't.
You're like, why? Yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I mean? And I think that's where I think a lot of kids are being mishandled so early, is because if you're taught that from 6 years old, I hit the inside pitch pull, I hit the middle pitch up the middle, and I hit the ball away the other way.
Yeah.
And you're taught that without exception, no matter how long your arms are, no matter how close you stand to the plate, no matter who you're playing, if you take that as law, well, say there's an adjustment that you need to make against a certain pitcher that just always gets you out, but it's not in your game plan to be able to hit the ball that's away, pull, or up the middle.
Right.
You know, like I've had kids where I put the tee, just on the tee, I put the ball on the tee on the outside corner, and I move it a little bit farther out front, and I say, just barrel this.
Yeah.
I said, I don't care where it goes, just barrel it.
Yeah.
And they hit it, and then I'd say 80% of the time they hit it up the middle.
Right.
And I'm like, if you do that in the game, is your coach going to be like, you didn't hit that the other way?
Exactly.
So I think that's what I'm saying, is that, like, you know, it's all about trusting the process, but at some point that process has to get results.
Yeah, it's a results-oriented industry that prides itself on being process centric. It's like, well, how do you rectify those?
Yeah, they don't go together. Like, I've got to have a lot of money behind my name in order for my process to not work for longer than 2 months. Put it that way.
That's right. Everybody's a good hitter. Everybody feels really good in December, unless you're playing in Mexico and you're struggling. But like, everybody feels real good in America in January, and then you find out what clients are coming back in the end of April. You're like, yeah, you know. But one of the I know from myself, I'm speaking from experience, and also a lot of guys I've trained, they go to their 4-year school. They go to college programs, and their coaches are actually saying, like, you grew up in Austin, so I'm sure we're no stranger to Augieism and to the Augie Garrido style. And like, I'm a big fan of everything that guy used to discuss. I think he had a particular type of genius. But my point being, in college and high school, oftentimes coaches are like, this is the structure. You follow the structure. I give you the opportunities. This is the way to bunt, and you're going to do it my way. What advice would you give to players that might have the self-awareness to understand, like, hey, I got to think about a different thing. I got to approach it a different way for me to be successful without ruffling feathers? How do you do that? That's a tough question for guys.
It's very tough, and it does take a little bit of feel. Like, I think, as you said earlier, you know, the game is getting younger. With that comes, you know, the realization from the coaches and the people who are in charge of the game that this younger generation is more technologically capable.
Sure.
Like, for us, especially for me, if a coach said, hey, you got to do this, I couldn't really say anything to the contrary, because I didn't have Google growing up.
Okay. That's what you're saying. You have the evidence to be able to say, but this guy does it this way.
Yeah. Like, to me, I think it's getting more acceptable as a player to ask why. Like, if a coach can't tell you why you're doing something, he can't really get mad at you if you don't want to do it. And again, you've got to have some feel. There's some coaches who are just tyrants.
Yeah, they're not going to give you the platform to
right.
freely.
But I think, you know, if you've got a coach who has, especially if they say, hey, my door's always open. If they say that, then they cannot get mad at you when you come to them afterwards and say, hey, your door's open. I walked in. I can't bunt like that. I've always bunted this way. Can you explain to me how I can do that? Or can I have permission to not, you know, show you up in front of everybody on the team, but
right.
Can I do it the way that gets me results? Because if you put a button down, I don't want to mess it up.
Right.
I think he will see that as your attempt to respect him and not try to show him up. And I think even if he is a tyrant coach, I think he will he will respect that and be like, all right, just get the bunt down. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know. So
You
I'd say
you assume that guys aren't self-destructive. At the end of the day, they want the success of if they can sense in you that you truly have the W in mind, the success of the team in mind. You're saying that okay, they'll give you a little bit more leeway there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if say it's the head coach, say it's the head coach that is the one who's just unmoving.
Sure.
You know, go to the hitting coach, because usually the dynamic in most baseball teams is the head coach, the manager is the enforcer, the hitting coach is the good guy.
Buddy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think, in that situation, go to the hitting coach and be like, look, man, I don't want to disrespect anybody, but, this is what I'm feeling. And this is how my game works. And I really I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but I also, I just want to be good for the team. And I think if you come at it from a respectful perspective, any coach is going to look at you and be like, this kid is a lot more mature than I thought he was.
Yeah. That's good. You got some, I know you got, we're approaching almost an hour here, and we'll definitely, you're okay on time? Cause
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. We'll have you back on too. Cause this is just gold, but, cause stolen bases, man, we used to talk about this a lot too. And I, for one, I've seen it decrease year by year. I see it decrease at the college level. I love the stolen base. I think it's one of the most exciting things in all of sports. And you're a guy, I think you stole 100 bags in your first 5 minor league season. You could run and not just run, but you knew what you were looking for. Number one, what do you think is the effect of this lack of stolen base at major league levels? Do you think it's good or bad for the game? And number two, I don't know, what were some of the things that it's a very open question, but what do you think were some of the things that you would pick up on in pitchers? Because you get to the highest levels, it's not just enough to be a fast runner. You have to have a little bit of gamesmanship. You have to know what you're looking for. So what do you think?
I think especially when I was coming up, there was an emphasis on your stolen base percentage.
Okay.
Especially in the minor leagues, which doesn't make sense because you're not trying to win in the minor leagues.
Sure.
You're trying to develop. So I didn't understand why they were so worried about your percentage. They're like, if you're not stealing above 80%, then we're going to take your green light away. So of course, if you say that, any logical, rational base stealer is going to say, all right, I'm only going to go when I am going to get it. You know what I mean? And I think that put the, I'm not going to say pressure on me, but it just made me want to be 100%.
Okay.
I didn't want to get close to 80%.
Okay.
I don't think I was ever in danger of getting close to it, but I think I didn't steal as much as I could have because I was worried about that percentage. But I think what's going on in baseball, especially at the higher levels and maybe even at the lower levels, is that, again, it's about developing players.
Okay.
And then at the big league level, it's about winning. So on one side, on the minor league level, if it's about developing players, you would rather that hitter get that at bat, I think, than that base runner run into an out and then that hitter doesn't get that opportunity to hit with a runner on base.
Okay.
I think on the big league side, it's a different side of the coin in that, if you're paying this guy $20 million to drive in runs, and I have a guy who is fast enough to steal bases, well, he can probably score from first if that guy who we pay $20 million a year hits the ball in the gap.
Right.
So I think what's going on is I think overall what's going on is I think people in the know realize that pitchers are getting really, really nasty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the powers that be in baseball might think that in 5 to 10 years, small ball won't be possible. I think that's what they're thinking. And that the pitchers are going to get so good that the only way that you can get offense is one swing of the bat.
Right. Like small variance events where you're not, if you hit you hit a ball off the fence or over the fence, like no one's going to defend that. So
Right.
where you're inheriting risk with a stolen base, you inherit less risk if you can hit a ball with low variance, if that makes sense.
So I think I just see it as, the risk of stealing second and moving up 90 feet isn't worth losing, I don't know, that swing of the bat, I guess. Especially when you think about once there's an open base, the pitcher changes how they pitch up. Most guys like hitting the fastball better. So if there's a runner at first, the catcher probably wants fastballs. So I think it's all just, again, that adjustment thing. I think once it becomes more lucrative to steal bases, I think guys will do that because every team, especially playoff contenders, every team has that one guy in AAA or on the big league roster who's there solely for his speed.
Yeah.
Like you look at Gore with the Dodgers.
Terrence Gore. Yeah, right.
Like that guy is an Olympic level. He's got Olympic level speed.
Right.
So I think by him having a job, it shows that speed is still valuable and that I think eventually it will come back because I think eventually people are going to get tired of home run derby.
Well, that's, yeah.
I think people want to see that excitement. People want to see triples. People want to see, the pickles. They want to see stuff where guys are being athletes because you can get anybody to go out and swing like a softball player, you know what I mean, trying to hit home runs.
Yeah.
So I think it'll come back, but as far as what I looked for when I was stealing is I just looked at, like, a lot of times they want you to, like, I'm sure every base stealer that's listening to this has heard, all right, this guy, the tell is his, elbow, or, watch his front heel or his back heel or whatever it is. And I found when I was doing that, I got very rigid and stagnant,
Okay.
It's like, how do I say this? Like if I were, say you're looking at my hand to try to figure out what's going to move first, and you're looking at this part to see if it moves, right?
Right.
Well, if I have a hard focus on this part of my hand right here,
yeah,
I might miss the subtle thing that my thumb does right before I move it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I tried to do is, instead of looking at this with a hard focus, I just looked at the whole picture with an understanding that the first thing that tended to move with this guy was, I don't know, maybe his belt buckle or maybe his hands or whatever it is. So say it's his hands that move first.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at him and I have a soft focus on his whole body.
Yeah.
While I have a kind of a somewhat focus on his hands, I can see when he prepares to throw. Even though I can't pinpoint exactly what it is, I can see when he's preparing himself to throw. And as you keep doing that, you'll start understanding when the guy is preparing to throw and when he's preparing to pick.
Yeah.
And then one other thing that I noticed that was really cool when I was with the Yankees was that, like, I'd say 85 to 90% of the time, wherever they're going to throw, that's what they look at first.
Okay.
So like, say the catcher's here, okay?
Yeah.
So I get the sign, I'm leaning in,
Mm-hmm.
and say he puts on a pick.
Yeah.
When I come set, this is what 80% of pitchers do. I say, yeah, that's what I want, and then they'll go, that's
a little glance. Yeah.
That's where I'm throwing, I'm coming set.
Yeah.
If they're going to the plate, a lot of times they'll look, they'll get the sign, they'll be like, yeah, that's what I want. Come set, then check the runner.
Right.
And that's just human nature, you want to pick up your target before you throw it.
Yeah.
I think those little things like that, they really, really, help, and then the thing that I started doing later on in my career that probably got me 5 to 10 stolen bases more a year was 2 things. 0-2, 2 outs, big bat on hitting. If he's got a 2-strike count or he's behind in the count, just go. If you get thrown out, he gets a new at bat.
Right.
If you don't, he's probably either gonna walk, or I mean, if he strikes out, it's whatever,
Right.
But they're gonna change how they pitch to him because there's an open base. They don't want him to score.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was really cool was, instead of seeing a 3-0 count as a inaction pitch.
Yeah, I remember this.
3-0, I was stealing.
Right.
Especially if the pitcher, like, say this little square is the strike zone, right?
Sure.
So say ball 1 is here, ball 1.
Yeah.
Ball 2 is here.
Yeah.
And ball 3 is here.
Yeah.
Like, for the hitter, for the coach, for anybody involved in that situation, this isn't a normal 3-0 count where it's like ball 1, ball 2,
yeah,
ball 3, right? It's 1, 2, 3. He's right around the zone.
Yeah.
So as a hitter, 3-0, if I'm the coach and I see where those misses were, I'm like, green light.
Yeah.
But if I'm the base runner, what does the catcher do whenever he's got a 3-0 count? He sets up middle. He sets up right down the plate. He doesn't set up to throw anybody out.
And he wants to just stick it and hold it there so the umpire gives it a strike. Yeah.
Umpire's probably going to call it a strike.
Right.
The pitcher is not going to check, hold,
right.
hold. He's not doing all that.
No.
He's not going to pick. Like, all of these, like, 3-0 is the most underutilized opportunity in baseball.
Okay.
Think about 0-2. Just switch it around, okay? 0-2 is the opposite of 3-0.
Yeah.
As a hitter, am I up there thinking, he's not going to throw a strike here because I have 0-2? Right? Yeah. The pitcher doesn't give up that opportunity to still execute. Right. But as on offense, we take a 3-0 count and it's like, here you go. You can have this. You're my competitor and your back's up against the wall, but
just
I'm going to take it.
Let him back in. Yeah.
I think coaches should allow their hitters to hit 3-0 at least once a series, so that the pitcher can't go up there. The pitcher still has to he still has to throw this pitch.
Yeah.
And this one 3-0.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We had, in the Frontier League last year, it was independent baseball, but we had statistics on this, and I think we, like, our 3, 4, 5, we were, like, myself and 2 other guys, we pretty much figured out that we decided pretty early on in the season, like, we get into 3-0 counts, like, you can't play this game all vulnerable. You have to be able to put those fears aside, whatever. No one wants to make a mistake and pop up a 3-0 pitch. Well, you're not thinking like that as a competitor.
Yeah.
3-0 pitch, if you're going to throw it in there, I'm going to take a hack. We started succeeding. Our coaching staff ultimately were, you know what? Green light. You want to swing 3-0, swing 3-0. We by the middle of the season, we noticed a discernible change in opposing pitching staffs because they'd fall behind 3-0. And then it wasn't just, you know how pitchers can be 3-0. They, like, rush to get back. They're just like, all right, here's a strike. They would, like, step off the mound and, like, take a second and realize that, like, okay, now 3-0, this is like a lever situation. I need to deliver a pitch here. We started walking more.
Yep.
And we still took our hacks 3-0. And game changer, man. Game changer.
Think about how the 2-0 count changes when the pitcher knows that the 3-0 count is a better 2-0 count.
Just pressure all the time, and the pitcher's got to. There's no take your foot off the gas pedal, and not to mention we would get confident because we'd be like 2-0, like you better, you're gonna miss here, like you better pour it in, like 3-0, we're gonna take a hack here. We started getting 3-0, 3-1 hooks. And then guys missed their off-speed stuff, which in turn helped our base stealers because we would start picking up like 3-1, like guys might spin us. Yeah, let's do a hit and run. Let's do something like that. So it's
3-0 is I feel like it's just uncharted territory in baseball right now because that's what I hear whenever I bring it up because I posted this question on LinkedIn once.
Okay.
And I got so many,
I remember this, yeah.
Many people were like, oh, well, what happens if you pop it up? And it's like, what happens if you pop up a 2-0?
A 1-1 fastball. Like.
Like, why put me in the lineup if you're worried about what might go wrong? You know what I mean?
Yep. That's a good question.
If you trust me with an 0-0 count, then trust me with a 3-0 count, because he could still walk me with an 0-0 count.
Right.
Especially now, I feel like 3-0 is going to start getting taken advantage of in the big league, on the big league level, because they're not worried about pitch counts anymore. A big part of taking 3-0 was, we want to get that pitch count up with the starter.
That's right.
Now you don't want to face the relievers.
Right. You want to you make your money off of the starting pitchers more often than not. Yeah.
Starting pitcher in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th inning.
Yes. Yes. Like, you get through that lineup one time, and then that second time you're like, all right, I know what he's got. I know what he doesn't like today.
Right.
You go from there. It's the same concept. To me, I link it back to what you were talking about as a hitting instructor and experience as a pro hitter. You want to be using information so that you can treat every event on its own. Like, every pitch, every sequence, like, you have an opportunity to create a success from that. And when you talk about flow state, getting into your flow state, like, you take information, you just described, like, reading pitchers and taking information, but you're not getting lost in reducing what they're doing to one little thing or one little tendency. You got to have that, okay, I'm focused on details, but I'm able to kind of step back and not get in the way of my own flow, so that my body just knows when he makes a move, I take off. Like, you can sense that the same way that, like, you're not analyzing, and then the slider came out of his hand and it broke 3 degrees at this time, and then I adjusted my bet. Like, no, sometimes you smoke sliders and you're like, I don't remember what that pitch was, but I am on second base. I hit a double and I succeeded.
I saw it there and my hands went like this.
Yeah,
and
same concept.
Yeah. I think there's just a lot of newcomers in baseball that, again, they've reduced it down to data and data points. Yeah. And I think to number crunchers, and to scientists, if it can't be represented if it can't be can't be quantified, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So, like, clutch, adjustments in the middle of an at bat that change up, the variables, like whether I move up in the box, move back in the box, whether I take a different swing, like, all these adjustments that you make don't really show up in data.
Right.
I think they've reduced the game down to an algorithm that doesn't really appreciate or recognize all of the intangibles and the unmeasurable things that go into a baseball game.
Right.
Like, maybe the pitcher was rushing through his windup because he had to go to the bathroom.
Right.
There's still
where's the data on that?
Yeah, there's no data on that.
Yeah.
So I think just the newcomers in the game just haven't been humbled yet to the point where they understand that there's a lot more to it than just the numbers that get spit out on the page.
Yeah. And I think there's a quote from somebody. It's like, not everything that counts can be counted, something like that. Not everything that matters can be quantified. Not everything that's quantified matters. I don't know. There's some quote from, I think there's like an intro to like a Travis Sawchik book about the Pirates, and they talk about that, like Big Data Baseball or something like that.
Have you read MVP Machine?
I'm like halfway through. It's interesting. Big Data Baseball is another one. It's about the Pirates when they made the playoffs and Huntington started shifting, and Travis Sawchik's good writer. Really, it's interesting because it's taking the quantified approach to defense, which is something that baseball circles, people are talking about it, but it's not as mainstream as a lot of these hitting metrics. But ultimate zone rating and all, a lot of these defensive metrics. It's very interesting.
What I see. I don't think that that book, the MVP Machine, it talks about basically player development throughout the years, and that's like the secret to just being good in baseball. And I think they're onto something. I think a lot of the strides that are being made through data, metrics, analysis, all of that is how do I say this? Because again, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth or anything. But I'll say that I don't think the greatest benefit to baseball is going to come out of this generation's data and analytics. Okay. I think this generation's data and analytics are paving the way for some really, really, really big improvements in a decade or two. But I think, like, for instance, if you look at Roy Halladay, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he had 5+ pitches. You know what I mean? And everything moved, right?
Right.
He was ahead of his time because there's guys, I'm not saying there's guys like Roy Halladay, but he was the inspiration and the motivation for a lot of pitchers that are pitching today.
It's true.
So I think, you know, with all of the metrics coming out, with the Edgertronic, with the Rapsodo, with all these different, you know, high-speed cameras and different metrics that allow guys to maximize the movement that they can get on the ball, I think what we're going to see is some kid who's, you know, 7 years old right now will be the best pitcher ever created because of all of this stuff. You know, I think right now they're not getting, the people who are doing all the data and analytics, they're not getting the credit they deserve because we can't implement it. You know, just like we don't know how to implement all the data and analytics and the sabermetrics into defense quite yet. I think as the tech gets better, I think we're going to start seeing some really big improvements in players. But I think our generation right now, we are kind of paralyzed by all the, you know, paralysis by analysis type thing.
Yeah.
So many numbers that we don't know how to use it yet.
It all comes down to creating self-aware baseball players. If you're using data to enhance your self-awareness, to understand what it is that makes you tick, mm-hmm. That's where because it's thematically, you step back and you say, what makes a successful big leaguer? And we're saying this before. It's understanding the player you are, mm-hmm. and being the best version of yourself. Not necessarily making yourself be someone else who has success at the level, but if you're using the data and the metrics and the objectives to enhance your own self-awareness, mm-hmm. Number one, that leads to confidence. A confidence ball player is always a better ball player than a non-confident player. We know that. Mm-hmm. Number two, not only do you then have to focus less on your execution, you can get back into that flow. Like, you can get back into your flow state more easily because you're just like, I have that central feeling of what it is that I can do, what I'm trying to accomplish. And then, like, I don't give two whatevers about what I appear to people. I know that I will look how I need to look when I'm playing the game.
I mean, you come across this a lot as you get older. Yeah. Because, you know, people start saying, oh, he's lost a step, you know. Yeah. I always think about Kobe. Kobe Bryant, probably I'd say 5, 6, 7 years ago, when people were like, oh, he's older, you know, he's still a slasher, but he's more of a perimeter shooter type thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I forgot who he was playing against, but he came down court and he slashed, rose up, and dunked on like 4 people. Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, no one thought he could do that at this point in his career, and he still did it. And that's that same thing. It's like, he wasn't trying to be somebody else. No. He knew who he still was, and he did it, you know. There's a book called, I think it's by Tim Galloway. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's like big, yeah.
Great book where it talks about, you know, it basically talks about getting to the flow state. Right. About how, like, you know, your mind thinks it's telling your body to do stuff when it's not. Your mind doesn't have to tell your body to breathe, or your body's doing so many things right now that you don't even realize it's doing, but for some reason, your mind thinks that it needs to tell itself to swing. Yeah. Or to throw or to run, or how the sequence needs to happen, you know. Yeah. And I think that inner game of tennis, and I probably read this, I think I read it in 2016, but I remember reading that part where he's like, you know, you've got to occupy your mind with, you know, the goal or the objective. And then that occupies your mind and it allows your body to just do what it needs to do. Yes. What it's been practicing for so long. Yes. And I think that goes back to, you know, knowing who you are. if I'm trying to be somebody else and the situation presents itself that requires me to adapt, adjust, or, figure out how I can be successful, if it's not coming from inside and I have to look to somebody else, well, what would they do in this situation? It's not going to be as consistent. And I'm not going to be able to go back to that when that situation presents itself again with that same confidence.
Yeah. So the best hitting instructors and the best sport specific instructors, they're able to have players work on specific skills, but they're also working on developing a flow state at the same time. Like, you don't have to have a drill can be a drill for multiple purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you got to make sure you're working with the right people, and it has to be the right environment. But in talking about, kind of transitioning here a little bit, part of what helps players get into flow states, in my opinion, and you can speak to this because you've played probably in front of more people at a time than I may have in my career, but the impact that fans have on performance and the crowd environment has on performance. And obviously, we're in this crazy time in our lives and in world history where Major League Baseball is debating going back to the season this year, if they can hopefully have a season with no fans. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think that's going to impact players' preparation? And I asked we had one of the Astros mental skills guys on recently, and we were talking about a similar concept. Like, what did the fan experience? What did the fans mean to you as a guy that's played in the major leagues? How important is that, and what's the season even going to look like if it happens?
Yeah. There's something that one of the older guys talked about one side, because when I made my debut, I was 22 years old. So there was no, at the time, I didn't have to warm up. Once they called me into the game, it's like, Golson, you're in. And it's like, yeah, right. And I think a lot of that has to do with the energy in the stadium, the crowd, you kind of feed off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I remember I'd been up, and I think we played it was Boston, New York, and Baltimore.
Okay.
And then I got sent back down because I think they were going to the West Coast, and there's a bunch of righties or something. So I got sent back down, and when I got sent down, we were playing in, I want to say Charlotte or Durham.
Okay.
And at the time, Charlotte's field was the old one that's in Fort Mill, South Carolina. And
right.
they were on their last season, so they weren't putting anything into it. No one would come to the games. And Charlotte didn't have the same lights that the big leagues does, so you can't really see. And it was a midweek series, so it was
it's like no juice, right?
Yeah, you go from Fenway and Yankee Stadium to, these two ballparks that are just dying. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say dying, but it wasn't the same atmosphere as the big leagues.
Okay.
And another guy who was on the team with was I remember it was probably in the third or fourth inning or something, and I just remember being in the outfield during a mound visit, just being I got no energy.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you just don't have the big leagues right now. The idea is that that adrenaline is a big part of why people's practice doesn't translate to the game.
That's right.
Because people don't know how to simulate that focus level, that adrenaline. When there's 40,000 fans and possibly rowdy fans that don't want you to succeed.
Right.
And you're going up against one of their dudes, you know what I mean? The odds are against you.
Yeah.
And you can't simulate that in the cage. You can't simulate that in the bullpen. You can't simulate that. But, if you can take yourself there somehow up here, I think you'll definitely be better. But I think if you just understand that, I remember when I got called up, the very first time it was when I was with the Yankees. We were playing against Baltimore, and Miguel Tejada was coming up.
Yeah.
And we got a mound visit. Bases were loaded. We had a mound visit, and I'm in center field, and this is at New Yankee Stadium. And I remember that was the first time I looked around and was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is where I'm at." You know what I mean? And I think part of the reason why I didn't notice it before was because it was like, I think it was more of, I had played in the minor leagues where there weren't any fans.
Right.
And I played at stadiums where there are a ton of fans. And I think a lot of guys get caught up in that, oh, there's nobody here today, this sucks. Well, I think I got past the needing a crowd. Obviously you can draw off of it, but I got past that because it was like, you're not gonna, the crowd doesn't get paid when you succeed, and the crowd doesn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like you have to just adapt. I think at the big league level, everyone has played in front of no fans.
No fans. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone has. Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think it's going to be huge for the country. Just being able to have some type of live sports, have some type of something on TV where there's, personable people, people that you like or look up to. I just think it'll be really good for the sport and for baseball to get back to work.
Sure.
I know a lot of them are worried about, like, a lot of these conversations got leaked about, paying the players and all that stuff. And
yeah,
hopefully that all gets settled, you know what I mean? But man, it would be so good for I think people to turn on TV and see the United States getting back to some form of normalcy,
Yeah.
Especially in the summer.
Yeah. It's I keep waking up thinking I'm in a bad dream, kind of like it's bizarro world. I'm like, what month I don't know if it's happened to you, but like I'm in the East Coast, I'm in Jersey, and I'm just I can't remember the last time I was here in May. It's just like, and I mean, obviously I'm supposed to play for a team this year in the same league in New York, so I was going to stay relatively local, but it's just like, what month is it? Is it March? Is it like February? Like, I don't know.
It feels like that week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. And like, there's a warm day and you're like, I guess it's still early. And you're like, what? It's almost Memorial Day. Like, I don't even know, but
we just kind of, me and my wife, we just moved into this place. So it's like, we just kind of do our schedule completely different now. Like before we tried to have like a breakfast, lunch, dinner, like
regimented.
Yeah, now it's like, you hungry? No? Okay.
I know. I think a lot of people are like that, and it's like, what, trying to maintain the structure, but
yeah. But I think it's gonna. I think everything's starting to look good, and should be getting back to normal pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely hope so. It's
I don't know how it is in Jersey, Colorado. Everyone looks pretty ready to go.
I think the Coloradoans, they're a little bit more like, yeah, we just kind of go where it takes us. It is what it is. People out here, I don't think they're quite the same level of like laid back. So it's a little bit different. But it's interesting. I think that people will. I mean, it's a weird dichotomy too, because you have the whole country starved for baseball, but at the same time there's this underlying threat, and we don't have to go too in depth, but there's going to be contraction in minor league baseball pretty soon, and a lot of people have been kind of bought into the ownership's narratives in media, and I think the pro player narratives, and look, there's a lot of programs like this. Their players are understanding how to use the internet nowadays to, give fans their perspective. Mm-hmm. But people need to be prepared for, this contraction that's coming up. And if you look at the list, I mean, there's markets in places like Lexington, Kentucky, and, Staten Island, New York, that they're going to potentially lose their minor league baseball teams. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that there could be – we talked about this off screen. Do you think that there's a silver lining to that?
Well, that's like a really touchy subject, because obviously jobs are being lost. Like 42 teams, like that's thousands of jobs,
Right.
And not to mention the minor leaguers that are going to be displaced for that. Like, think if you were a fifth or sixth round pick in 2018.
You might not have a job right now.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for you to have a job, and I think that's all around baseball. Like college programs are thinking of shutting down if they don't have a football season because that pays for everything.
That's right.
So I think with contraction, the negatives are obvious, but the positives are that if you are a professional baseball player, you're probably going to have a living wage now.
You're going to be treated better, on
you're
average.
Probably going to be able to not have to get a job and dedicate your off season to getting better as opposed to getting an off season job.
Yeah.
I think it's, they're repurposing a lot of the stadiums to be more geographically make more sense.
Yeah, like centralized. Yeah.
So New Orleans isn't flying to Tacoma to play, twice a year.
3 games. Yeah.
But I think it's definitely going to change. I'd say in the past 5 to 6 years, or probably the past decade, AAA, when I got drafted, AAA was like a holding ground where guys stayed sharp.
Yeah.
To the big leagues.
Yeah.
Well, now guys are getting through the minor leagues a lot quicker, and AAA is a different product than it was back in the day. AA is a different product than it was.
Sure.
So I think what this will do is just kind of, I guess, distill the talent into a smaller pool so that guys get better.
Yeah.
Because, with those 42 extra teams, there was a lot of guys who were playing in the minor leagues who, for lack of a better word, were filler for the prospects to play. And that's not what I would call it, because at one point I was filler, and at one point I was a prospect. So I've seen both sides of it.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a lot. I think the independent ball leagues are going to explode.
Mm-hmm.
I think when when the pandemic got declared and everyone went into quarantine, I remember talking to my wife saying that this is survival of the fittest at its most. Like, companies are going to have to adapt if they want to survive.
Yeah.
Industries are going to have to adapt. You see it in the restaurant industry right now. People are allowing delivery more often. Like,
right.
Instead of giving that money to DoorDash, companies are starting to take that delivery in-house. So I think, with baseball, it's going to require a lot of creativity. And I think a lot of things that were needing to happen in baseball, when it comes to salary, when it comes to a lot of the labor disagreements, it was difficult to talk about it because, the season cycle would run out of time. But now, with, all these challenges that are presented to baseball, I think there's going to be a lot of good things that come out of it, and we're going to learn a lot of stuff about it,
right.
Whether replay is good, like all the things that we tried in the Atlantic League last year.
Right.
They're probably going to try that this year. I'm not for sure, but I know in the minor leagues they're doing, the robo umpires.
Yep. There's a heavy push for all of that right now in the minor leagues.
And I think even though I hated it last year because it had a couple glitches in it, the strike zone.
Yeah.
I think it's this generation won't benefit from it, but the next one will greatly benefit from the strides that we're making now. And I think contraction is another one of those things where it stings right now because it's what we've gotten used to. But you can see it in an MVP machine. There used to be so many minor league teams.
True.
There used to be, like, the Dodgers had like 12 different teams or something like that.
Right.
So I think, it was at some point they were going to have to squeeze it down. But I eventually think it'll start growing again. It's just a lot of the ballparks that they got rid of were outdated or needed some improvements. And I know a lot of that stuff would fall on the taxpayers to make those improvements. So I think there's just a lot that needs to go on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is the first one.
Yeah. I think, my only hope is that leagues like the Frontier League and, some of these independent leagues, if they can absorb some of these teams, I feel for the local economies. I see it here. I see the fear in people's eyes at the Jersey Shore. I mean, obviously the governor just said they're going to keep stuff open. They have to keep stuff. They have to try to open it up for Memorial Day, because you have seasonal businesses that their livelihoods depend on being able to do Memorial Day, July 4th, and Labor Day. I know what it's like for cities that, I mean, you've seen it, where they rally around their minor league baseball team. And it's something that's entrenched in the fabric of the town, socially and economically. So I hope that they don't just lose these teams, because from a fan perspective, from a player perspective, like, what's good for the sport is having kids being able to access professionals and see even on a minor league level, like, come into play, come in to watch guys play right there up in front of you. That's what this is all about. That's what our mission here is, to try to get people access to what, I mean, this is amazing too. Like, you're sitting here for an hour and a half getting to talk to, a guy that's won a ring. And I mean, there's a lot. I think it's important that players get treated well, but we have to consider too the fact that you're never going to replace, the fan experience with it's not going to be like the esports league where you're just watching it on a screen. I think there's something so visceral about going to a game and smelling the hot dog and smelling the grass and hearing the crack of the bat and all this stuff. So it's I don't have an answer for, I don't exactly know how it's going to shake out, but
yeah, I think what should be a thing is, like you had mentioned how I went and played in Mexico and Dominican and Venezuela.
Hell yeah.
I think there should be winter ball in the States.
Hell yeah. 100%.
Like, why not?
100%.
Like, why do I have to, and nothing against those countries.
Right.
But why do I have to go to a third world country to play baseball?
Why can't you do that in San Diego and South Florida and Texas? Why can't you do that?
Texas, Florida, all those ballparks that are probably going to not have a team.
Yeah.
Why don't they do something in the winter so that, players can be in front of, like, players that normally wouldn't be seen can be seen by, a kid in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I just think it's unfortunate, like, they have the fall league, they had the Hawaiian winter league.
Yeah.
And that didn't last very long, but it's like, you go to Mexico or Venezuela or Dominican and you're subject to a completely different lifestyle,
Of course.
And in Mexico, they don't necessarily treat the Americans, the ball players anyway. If the team is losing and you're winning, if the team is losing and you are doing, your job as an American,
yeah,
or a foreigner,
yeah,
if the team's losing, they'll get you out of there just to switch it up. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it has nothing to do with your performance. And I think that's it's unfortunate that, as a baseball player, especially, probably top 10, top 5% of baseball players in the world as a professional baseball player.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for, the top 10% of baseball players in the world to have to subject themselves to going, to unsafe environments, places where, the transportation isn't the greatest, the lodging isn't the greatest. Like, why can't we just do that in-house? You know what I mean? And not have to, subject our prospects and our top players to that. I know they love it. I went down there and I had a great time playing in Mexico. We won a championship in Mexico.
Yeah.
But I think, I just think there should be an option for players to still develop in the off season. You know what I mean? Without having to go, across the borders, especially now when everything is so unsure. Last year, President Trump said that nobody could go to Venezuela.
I know. And
that was a moneymaker for, like, anybody, a lot of people that were in the Atlantic League. The Atlantic League, the max you can make is $3,000 a month. And rarely does anyone make that.
Right.
So, with that $3,000 a month, and then you've got to figure out a way to live in the off season. So a lot of guys are going to Venezuela because that's where
you get paid. Yeah. And it's good baseball. And
it's great baseball.
Yeah.
So when that wasn't an option and it happened, well into the season, probably 3/4 through the season, when they said that they couldn't, we couldn't go to Venezuela. It was like, so then Mexico and Puerto Rico and the Dominican, they realized, oh, now we got a surplus of talent that we
Right.
can load pretty much.
Right.
So it's like, the past 2 to 3 years for baseball players has been very, very trying. And, with contraction and, coronavirus, the pandemic, with all this stuff going on, it's only getting harder. And, this is in all levels,
Yeah.
High school players that were hoping to earn a scholarship, they didn't get that last season.
Right.
And they've got the seniors from college that are probably going to come back.
It's already affecting the recruiting, and the dead period's extended, so coaches can't come out and watch players play. It's tough.
The draft is only 5 rounds.
That's 5 rounds.
So the guys that were going to get drafted in the 9th round as juniors are going to go back to school.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff. It's just shockwaves that are going
to
completely reverberate for the next decade or so.
Yeah. Someone's going to step up though. So, like if I'm Korea or I'm Taiwan, I don't know. If I'm, or even like an independent group here, if I'm someone that's looking at this environment, I'd be like, there's an avenue here to take some of these players, and there's a lot of really good baseball players that are going to be looking for something.
I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, is how good of baseball there is outside of the major leagues.
Yep.
Just because you're not in the major leagues doesn't mean that you are not good. And just because you are in the major leagues doesn't necessarily mean that you are better than guys that aren't in the major leagues. And that's not to rustle any feathers, but there's guys that belong in the big leagues that aren't.
There's a meaningful product out there that can be dressed up and enjoyed for, for families and for the public consumption. It's
100%. I'm not going to name names or anything, but there's just guys that are in the big leagues that probably aren't as good as other guys, but for whatever reason, they're there. Maybe they're a good clubhouse guy. Maybe they know somebody, or maybe whatever it is, maybe they got lucky. For whatever reason, they're there, and that's not their fault, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best. Yeah.
And you and I have seen guys that have been outside even affiliated systems where you're like, what is that guy doing? That guy's like 28, throws like 99 miles an hour. You're telling me that there's no job for him in
Chris Carter with his last year in the big leagues, he hit 40 home runs?
Yeah.
And it just happened to be before the "we don't care about strikeouts" crowd came in. But he went overseas, played, and he played in Mexico last year and hit like 50 home runs and hit like 360. Yeah.
That guy's a really good hitter.
He did it in the big leagues, and now he's still doing it.
Yep.
What's happening? And it's, I'm sure he's happy. I think he qualified as a native down there or something.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that. I think you're right.
So I think if you're a native down there, then they can pay you more because you don't go against the foreigner limitation.
We had a few guys from our team that were with us in 2019 actually that were able to gain some through their family. They had citizenship capabilities, and then that it opens doors. But it's important to hear this stuff because, like we always say, there's something very valuable about hearing the perspective from a guy that's been there, a guy that's played, a guy that knows the ins and outs of the game. It's just it's incredible. I don't even, what time is it? It's almost 2 hours. And to be honest, I have like 3 hours worth at least of more. No. There's things we could get into. I haven't even scratched the surface with you. So
this feels like a clubhouse conversation, honestly.
Yeah, man, because for guys that dedicate, you're one of those guys that I knew within like 15 minutes of talking to you. I'm like, this guy has dedicated his life to understanding this, and we need more of that. That's so valuable. But listen, man, like anytime, not that I'm kicking you off. I know it's anytime we get towards the 2 hour mark, I'm always like, I don't know if the guys want to go eat lunch or whatever. But no, man, it's we're grateful that you came on and
anytime, man.
Yeah,
Anytime.
it's so valuable. But so obviously we'll put your social media up and everything. Make sure that you're linked, and um, I think that this won't be the first time we bring you on and whatnot. And then hopefully, baseball does come back. You'll be out, you'll be doing a lot. We didn't even talk about the pro scouting stuff very much, but you would be, you'd be out on assignment, various places.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Well, something.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything's gonna be video because there's no fans allowed. Video
That's
scout,
true. I need to think
but
about that.
but with there being no fans, there's probably gonna be 3 times more cameras, which means the video scouting will be a lot better.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball is essentially a tech company at this point with their capabilities. So there's likely not going to be any shortage for what you need to do
Yeah.
of resources. So it's
And California basically said, or Florida basically said, if there's any sports teams that want to play that aren't because of their home state's laws, that Florida will open up any stadium for them to play, which is awesome because now that's Arizona and Florida that are on board with having their stadiums being used.
so that would be for professional teams, I guess, if you want. Interesting.
In college. In college.
The NCAA has rules against that, right? So they'd have to if you're a college football team, you have to have training camp on campus, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to change. I mean, look, we're in the middle of a huge reorganization, so
Yeah.
think they'll change rules and things, but
especially if it's at the risk of losing all of their sports programs.
yeah, if you're a major team that brings in like the University of Kentucky, major revenue builders, guys that,
Like they're gonna have to do it because it's not football pays for
a lot,
non-athletic stuff.
yeah, a lot, like libraries and
Yeah.
labs. I mean, in some places, and
So I feel like they're gonna find a way to get it done.
yeah,
Whether they have all the fans in hazmat suits or what, but they're gonna make it happen.
yeah. It's like Naomi Campbell. Somebody goes on. So the thing is, Naomi Campbell goes on every time she goes on a flight, she wears like the astronaut suit. Maybe that's the future. Maybe Naomi Campbell will design the new fan experience.
I definitely think tech is gonna have an explosion because of this pandemic. Like virtual reality, this is a big opportunity for them to have the seats at the stadiums.
Yeah, see, I don't like. I hear that. I don't love that stuff because it's not the same. I don't know. I'm a little bit like skeptical of the VR stuff, but
it's not the same. But
like I went to the winter meetings in 2016, and I can't tell you how many vendors had stalls there that were trying to push VR as a player development tool. And I mean, I went there with some Georgetown guys, and every time we would we went around and they were like, "Oh, check this out," and they'd be like, "Are you guys with a team? This is a VR tool." And we're like, "Listen, dude, this is a video game. This is a dope video game.
right.
You should probably try to sell this to I don't know. I feel like they would like this in Japan. You should. This is a dope video game. This is not a player. They're like, no, it's a player development tool. I'm like, listen, man, if I want to work on my craft, we'll get a machine. We'll hit in a cage. We'll hit the baseball. It's not a player development tool, but maybe they're going to prove us wrong and continue to.
Again, I think in 10 years, what VR is doing will be like in every major league stadium.
This could be.
I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. Like, it's not going away.
It's probably not going away.
It's not going away. I don't think it's going to completely take over. I think it's going to like return to the mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right now, it's new, so everyone's like, "Oh, we gotta figure out how to do this and do that with it." And I think eventually people will be like, "All right, tech is valuable, but so are the people that are doing it."
100%.
You can't teach experience.
100%. Yeah. Well, Greg, man, it's beyond a pleasure, man, to have you on. And like I said, I mean it. We got to have you back because we got so much more to talk about. Pro scouting. We didn't even talk about some of your experiences and your stories, and there's plenty more to go around. But yeah, if you're listening out there, feel free to check out our YouTube page at Rax Hacks Remote. Make sure you hit subscribe. I'm sure Greg's pages will, we'll have that information up. And we'll get all the necessary information out there. Make sure you guys go and check out American Batsmith if you're looking for some bats, and message us for our Rax Hacks discount code at www.americanbatsmith.com. And as always, keep it tuned here, guys, because, we're data driven, but we're human centered. Like we Greg and I are talking about. At the end of the day, it's about putting good people first, putting you in a position to get information, insight from guys that have been there and understand the ins and outs and have the experience. And that's what it's all about. So, we appreciate anybody that's been on here, and that's pretty much our show for today. So this is Zach Racusin signing off. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys again next time. And this is Greg Golson. Greg, thanks again, man.
Anytime, man. Take care out there.
Awesome.